Hello, I'm Mark from Trailbuddy. Today we've got 4 bikes in front of us, and each one of these represents different directions that you could go. So on my right, we've got a restored bike. Now we've replaced the bare minimum. The next one here, we've got a resto mod where we're replacing anything that looked bad, but it's got a 125cc aftermarket engine in it. This one right here is a parts bin bike, and it was made from everything on our shelves here at Trailbuddy. So everything that you want right from the scratch. The last bike we have here is a clone bike out of the crate. So each one of these have different pros and cons, and it's really up to you to pick what you want and what you want to do with your bike. So we'll go through each one, and hopefully you can kind of pick out what resonates with you. So the first one we pulled out here is for you guys that want the original stuff. So this also can represent the most expensive option based on what you want to do. So for this one, this is actually a customer's bike. But what he wanted is he wanted it as original as he absolutely could be for the nostalgic of it. He wanted everything to look original, and he wanted OEM parts on everything. And if it wasn't necessarily bad or bent or broken, he wanted to keep it as it is. So this one could actually use a little bit of a cleanup. I think this paint would shine up really, really good. He didn't even want to replace the sticker. But the parts that we did replace are the headlight bucket here. Obviously, these are plastic, and that's like one of the first things to go to get crunched. Another part that we did is this exhaust system. So now that represents quite a bit of a cost because you have to buy those piecemeal, and they're becoming extremely hard to get. That's an actual Honda. Now, this year bike, we'll call it 69 to 70, 71, and the particular the H one here is particularly more desirable because it's a 4-speed. But these have the most support for aftermarket parts and or people reproducing. So it's kind of different. I mean, when you're talking about aftermarket parts, OEM parts, so some are like to the T where they're a reproduction part. Some are, well, it could be a clone part, but it fits. And other ones are OEM. So if you really, really like the nostalgic of it, you want it to... Now, this also has a better, I would say, resale value because it's original Honda pieces down to the bolts. So the bolts are kind of funny. Everybody kind of, it's got the little 8 on the end of the hex. People really dig that. But this one will probably also give you the best return on investment in terms of flipping it, or when you really want to go to sell it, or if you kind of get bored looking at it and then you really want to get a bike that you can really beat up and have fun on. Another thing is thinking back on it back in the day, everybody was a lot younger, a lot lighter, and they typically remember these things going way faster and having way more power than they do now, or that they actually had, because back then we were a little lighter and we were younger and we were kids. So that is one thing that we hear quite a bit about this one is people kind of get, well, it's fun, but it's not quite as fast as I'd like it to be. So something to keep in mind. But if you really, really like the original stuff, this is the setup for you. Second bike we pulled out is probably one of the more popular ones because it's a lot of fun. So this one we restored visually back to original in terms of we've got the decals on it, we've got the handlebars, we've got the right seat, got the good tire tread pattern, and the fenders, and like everything is back the way it's supposed to look, but we have the aftermarket higher CC engine. So going from a 70 to a 125 is an awesome difference. So if you really, really want to get out and use your bike, this is the option, I think, for you. It makes it so much more usable. I mean, it's a you get rid of points, so it's a CDI ignition. It also is a 12 volt, so the headlight and the tail light typically are quite a bit brighter. It has a new electrical system in it, ignition. We've got our thumper exhaust on it. We've got the newer carburetor. We've got our on-off reserve switch. But other than that, it's got all regular parts and pieces. We also have our aftermarket battery set up inside. We reused the plastic gas tank. Now, if you can, it's probably a good idea to switch over to the steel gas tank. They just seem to flow a little bit better. This engine is going to require just a little bit more gas to get out down the road and have fun. But this is an awesome option if you really want to get out and use it. It turns it into a whole different bike. But it also looks original, which is really kind of feeds two parts of the soul there, where you can have the motor and have the fun, but you can also have the original look of this Honda Trail 70. Now, when you put the 125cc in the bike, now it brings it up a bit more from the 70cc. So this one, you're going to want a little bit more of an experienced rider. But that being said, this is originally a clutch chassis. We turned it into a semi-automatic. It makes it a little bit more rideable. So if you've got grandkids or kids, the semi-automatic 125 isn't bad, but you definitely want to make sure they're just a little bit more of an experienced rider, because the speed you can get out of these guys as well is quite a bit more than the 70cc. But it's not too bad. If you want the 140, or anything bigger, then you definitely want an experienced rider. But keep that in mind when you're doing your build. You pretty much want to think about in the end, what do I want to do with this bike after I got done building it? Now, there's a lot of fun of getting the parts and pieces, but you also got to keep in mind how you're going to want to use it, because you don't want to build a bike that in the end doesn't work for how you want to use it. Now, one thing you're going to want to check out with this bike is we've got a whole build series from start. We've got a roller here to what it is today. So check us out on YouTube for that. I think we've got like 16 episodes of that. So there's a lot of content to get you inspired. And it goes into a little bit of a detail of how to put the stuff in, how it works, and what to expect when you're doing it. So check us out there too. So the bike we have here is kind of the ultimate a la carte version. So I built this one, I think, in 2009 or 10. But this one was when we had frames and we sold kit frames, which was kind of neat because it came with all the color matching parts. You got the swing arm, the tank, the frame, the headlight, and the seat, and it all worked. But this guy is 100% out there. We'll start from the front. So the front tire started out as a Kenda, and I went to town on it with our carving knife to get the cool pattern. Now, and back in late 2000, 2009, 2010, we couldn't really figure out what fit well for the aftermarket tires. So what I have in the back is an actual quad tire for a kid with the most beefy, meaty tread that I could find. Now that thing just fits. So I had to actually shave the lugs off of the side so it wouldn't hit the chain. Now this one, we've got one of our older aftermarket 125 four-speed clutch. It's still a Zhongshan engine. But, boy, this one, I've got so many trail miles on it. This is the bike that I did quite a bit of single track on, and it's only ever done that. So I've got 703, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that is like beating on it 703 miles. It's got our taller wider handlebars, all aftermarket wire harness. It's got one of my old original thumpers on it where we used to cut it off, take out the guts, and then TIG weld it back together. I've got a custom-made foot peg assembly on it with pit bike foot pegs. So I had to like mash them up because in the beginning of doing this kind of kit bike stuff, you could only buy the one with a rubber on it. And if you really, really ride it hard, those rubbers kind of pull off. If you're just cruising around the yard, it's great. But, and I also got probably a 1732 setup on it for gearing, and this one flies. So if you really want to go all out and have a ton of fun, this is a really good option. Like I said, I built this one in mind for going off-road, single track, and just having a blast. So this one, there's also videos online. I think I even took this one in Michigan here. We've got a place called Silver Lake, and it's just dunes for acres and acres of dunes. And I got this one in there, and it worked actually great. It got on top of the sand, and it's cruising. So there's lots of videos on our YouTube channel. There's even of me really eating it. I flipped right back over. But this is a great one. So hopefully this is kind of inspiring for people that just want to go all out. Now this one, you're going to have to like take into account, you're getting parts from everywhere, and they were never designed to mash back together. So if you really like altering, finding things that work and having a challenge, this is the ultimate for you, because again, you're buying things from all these different companies and you're trying to get them to work, and you got to get it to work for what you want. So that's a great option if you really want to go down that road. The last bike we have in our stable here represents pretty much a generic clone that you can get. Now there's lots of these out there from over the years. There's been so many I can't even remember all the different brand names. But this is a pretty good representation of what you'd get. So the quality on these guys are not too bad. I mean, it's definitely not an old original Honda, but it's a really great rider. So this one has a couple different avenues. So if you want a bike and you want to be able to ride it and use it, but you're not necessarily that mechanically advanced yet, this is an awesome one to learn on because everything's here. Got a good base. I mean, as long as you're changing the oil, you're keeping the right gas in it, it'll treat you right. As long as you're not over revving it, getting the R's too high, this will last a long time. I think we've got customers out there that had some of our old SkyTeam bikes, and they've got maybe 12,000 miles on it before the engine gets tired. So that is a pretty good run for these older motors, especially since when we rebuild some of the old CT70 motors, it's somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 miles that those ones start to get tired and the compression starts to go down. So, I mean, the Honda motors in back in the day, I mean, they're a great bike, don't get me wrong, but they're still an older motorcycle and older technology. So, and then the other option for this one is it's a great base for if you want to go nuts. So you can obviously see the tires on it aren't all that cool. It's really set up for street. It's got a low mount fender in the front, which is really designed to represent the European look. The back, it's got a decent chain guard. This one's got buddy pegs on it already. It's got a rear rack, blinkers. I mean, everything really works on this one. So you can go the two directions. You can just buy it, ride it, or this is an awesome base to start building from. Now these motors that come with these aren't necessarily too bad. I see a lot of people just starting to throw the 190s in it, so I mean whatever you're looking for, I mean that's a heck of a motor. And it does take quite a bit of work to get that guy shoehorned in here and some of the other parts and pieces, so you really got to want that 190cc. But these are great. They're really useful. They last a really long time. And I don't think you'll be sad if going with this option. So, I mean, the original ones, that's if you want the original, you want to spend the money on that. But now we have tons of customers that actually have their restored original bike and they're afraid to ride it because, one, there's so much money wrapped up in it, especially if you're bird dogging all the OEM parts. And what they'll do is they'll buy something like this. So they can get this bike and just either just use it or beat the crap out of it and have fun because they're kind of essentially what the mini trails were back in the day. They're kind of a throwaway motorcycle where people didn't really think that these bikes would be around 40, 50, 60 years down the road and people are still loving them. So there's some decals and legality to think about when you get something like this. So if you get a roller and it doesn't come with a title, it can be a bear to kind of get that thing on the road. So most often these come with certificates of origins, so you can get your title for them. Now, it's really quick and easy to be able to put the aftermarket original tread pattern on these. We've got a high mount fender kit that you can buy, get that fender up high, and you can get our decal kits, and you can really make this thing look pretty original. So guys like us that really know what we're looking at, you can definitely tell like right away that it's a clone. But most people that just kind of like the old Honda Trail 70s, you get the decals on here, you get the seat done right, you get the right tread pattern, kind of maybe take the blinkers off a little bit because that's kind of a dead giveaway. But other than that, this is a great option for a good, true clone with just a few parts and pieces. You can really get this thing looking and riding awesome. So we went through all the different avenues you can do. We'll talk about it one more time. We've got the restored version here on my right, where we only replaced the parts that needed to be replaced, and everything that did get replaced was original Honda equipment. The next one, we replaced and restored everything we had with all new parts and pieces, and this one represents the Resto mod because it's got the aftermarket engine in it that really gets up and goes. The one here, this was a total parts bin bike, a la carte, 100%. Anything that we wanted from the beginning, we put on this one. This one's a blast off-road. The one on the end here represents the clone option you can go, which again is a really good option. You can just buy it and drive it as is, or if you really want it to get looking like a Honda, there's just a few things you can do to swap parts and to get it to look more like an original Honda. We've got a ton of those parts for this guy on our website. We've actually started a new section or category for clone support. So, and we'll be developing that further to help support guys that have these clones. So we bought a couple different versions of clones so we can help with fitment issues, because just because it looks like the right bike doesn't mean it exactly fits in there. So with that being said, all the parts and pieces on here are available on our website. So check us out at mytrailbuddy.com.